What is going on, community? It is TJ, aka Flash by Night, and today I want to try something a little different. I want to wade into what may be deep waters, what may be shark infested waters, uh, but I want to give something a shot. I want to weigh in on the new Masters of the Universe Revelation series on Netflix. It is 5 episodes right now. I think there's a part 2 coming pretty soon. But it's 5 episodes, 25 minutes apiece. And there is an elephant in the room that everybody's been talking about. I don't know if it's even an elephant in the room anymore. But to get it out of the way, yes, Teela and her friend Andra, I think it is, gets the lion's share of screen time in the show. And yes, it is true that He-Man is absent from 60 to 70% of the show, maybe. But we're going to start there and make our way through a few points that I want to get through regarding this show and how I actually enjoyed it, and I think I may see it differently from a lot of fans. So, subject number 1, which is the basic point on everyone's mind, the kind of point of contention, whether or not you are pro or anti this version of Masters of the Universe. Everybody's conversations are circling around He-Man not being the focal point. But from my perspective, this is called Masters of the Universe. I believe the original cartoon was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, but this is just the Masters of the Universe. And so we are getting to see more of a lot of characters in Eternia. I believe Teela gets the spotlight and the focus, and she is the subject of most of the talk surrounding the show. But we get a little bit more focused on other characters as well. We get a good bit of spotlight on Duncan, the OG Man-at-Arms. I really enjoyed his character arc. I felt really bad for him at the first part of the show and what he went through. And then when he shows up later in the show, it was really great. I was happy to see him throughout the rest of the show, and kind of, you know, where his relationship went with Teela, and then where it came back to by the end of the show, with her finally giving him that hug that she gave him at the beginning, kind of signifying that we've come full circle in their relationship for this story arc. I really enjoyed that. Also, no, we got a little bit more time with Orko. Orko got to, talk about his family, talk about his past, what his family wanted him to be, and what he thought he ended up being. And he also got his really big hero moment. And I love that about the show. But my favorite part of the show, actually, my low-key MVP, was Evil-Lyn. I have something, I don't know what it is, but I really like the second or third character in the show that is kind of this snarky, sarcastic, I don't really want to be here, but I have to type of character. I really like that type of character, and Evil-Lyn played a great part in doing just that. And we got to see other people. We got to see Merman and who is it, Triclops. They got some development. Even Beastman. I don't remember a whole lot about Beastman, but I like this iteration here. So one thing this show does do is give us some spotlight and give us some character development for characters who I think we've come to regard as side characters, and maybe we don't feel that type of way about them, or didn't beforehand. And I feel better about those characters now. Point number 2, and I don't think it's really important, it's not a big deal, but I really liked that Magic was kind of a character unto itself during this 5-part series. And when we started to lose magic, technology basically took over. I wouldn't have really guessed that for the show. And, technology takes over. And then we kind of try and push magic back to the forefront. Like I said, it's not a big thing. It's not a big deal in the overall scope of the conversation, but I just wanted to bring that up. So my third point, and where I'm going to probably wade a little bit into the deep waters I was speaking about in the intro, is that for all the talk of Teela taking He-Man's place at the top of the Masters of the Universe food chain, Teela never does actually try and fill He-Man's boots in this show. We kind of know that He-Man is the hero that he is, but Teela, at least in the show, starts her journey out basically as almost a bounty hunter of sorts. She basically took a job for money, and then as part of this adventure, she kind of slowly but surely finds the hero within herself. But she doesn't actually want to be the hero in this series. It kind of forces it on her. Whereas if you look at the history of He-Man, he's been that hero the whole time. He's been the champion of Eternia the whole time. And what you think of He-Man, what you've always thought of He-Man, is who he is. And I don't see Teela in this series, trying to replace him in that way. Even when we skip to the end and they finally put the power sword back together, and the power sword is needed to bring magic back to Eternia, to set everything straight. She has the power sword. If she was going to take He-Man's place, she didn't need Adam. But you know what she did? She got the power sword. She looked at Adam. You've got to do this. And she gives Adam the power sword, and he tries to bring the magic back to Eternia. We know where that leads to, and I'm going to cover that a little bit later. But my point stands that while the focus of the action and the adventure was on Teela, I don't think she's ever tried to fill He-Man's boots within this story, and I don't think she will going forward. If I'm not mistaken, she's supposed to be the heir to the sorceress, maybe. So we'll see how that works out in the future. But I think He-Man is still He-Man, and He-Man will be the champion of Eternia. Like I said, we'll get to that in a little bit if you stick with me for just a minute. So point number 4, and I really want to make this a strong point because I don't think people see it this way, and I'd like to try and persuade people who don't. It may not work. I'm not saying it will, but I want to at least try to get people to see it a different way, who already don't see it this way. But point number 4 is that He-Man, while he's not on screen for 60 to 70% of the show, still informs what Masters of the Universe and what Eternia is. He-Man and his influence still shapes the landscape around this show and around this property. If you notice, like I said earlier, Teela's adventure, while her adventure takes up most of the show, Teela is not the hero, quote unquote, the traditional hero of the show. Teela goes along and, like I said, she went on her adventure for money, and then heroism kind of caught up to her towards the end. But episode 1, He-Man has a choice to make. He can either let Eternia and magic die, or he can use the power sword and try to suck up all of the magic from the orb of wisdom, if I remember right. He can use the power sword, suck up all that magic, and maybe die. Like that choice was sitting there before he made his choice. That was sitting there. He knew that death was probably going to happen. Without blinking, without making another sound, with no question, he chose to sacrifice himself for eternity. That's the hero we want. I know people are like, He-Man died in the show. They killed He-Man, and you could say, yeah, they killed He-Man, but his death meant something. If this was any other property, any other circumstance, any other movie or animated series or show, and the main character decided that he was going to basically die for everybody else, we would call it heroic. It's kind of like the guy who takes his helmet or just his body and jumps on the grenade to save the platoon. It's heroic. That's what we think of. But because it's He-Man, we see it through a different lens. But I'd like to say that what He-Man did in the beginning of the show was heroic and should be celebrated as such. Now, point number 2, or I guess point 4B. We'll call it 4B. The first point was point 4A. So 4B is, even in the flashbacks, you can see that everything that He-Man was teaching Teela, everything He-Man was teaching, all of his wisdom, all of his moves, were things that she took along with her on the adventure. Meaning to me, signifying that even if He-Man is gone, his impression, his influence lives on. And I think that his influence may be as important or more important than the feats themselves. As we saw and heard in the show, that he is not the first champion and he won't be the last champion of Eternia. And so what's really important, besides his heroics and besides him physically protecting Eternia, is his influence and what he pushes forward and what people would do who come after him in the next 10, 20, 50, 100, 200, 1,000 years. And so I like the fact that they showed us flashbacks, kept showing us flashbacks of He-Man kind of teaming up with Teela, just to say that He-Man's influence is here. Even if He-Man is not physically here, his influence is here. Now, point 4C, and I think is the most important point of He-Man still being the hero of this show, is that when he had a choice that most of us would not make, a choice his ancestors did not make. When he had a choice of whether to stay in heaven or come back to Eternia to fight for his friends and loved ones and Eternia itself, he chose to go back. He could have had eternity in their version of heaven, been happy all day, go on the wild hunt with his ancestors. It could have been great and grand and glorious. And he knew that if he made this choice to go back, he couldn't come back, even though I think he will come back. But even though he made this choice to go back to Earth, he made the choice knowing that he couldn't come back to heaven if he went back to Eternia to fight alongside his friends and family. And that's what he did. He made a choice that 99% of us would not make, because once I go to heaven, you can't convince me to come back down here to Earth to fight for just about anybody. So I admire the choice he made. And again, I will say that He-Man is the influence, the heartbeat, and the hero of this show, even if the screen time says otherwise. And my fifth and last point is that the story isn't over. We've already got at least a part 2 coming that we know of. And in reality, it's 5 episodes, 5 20-something minute episodes of hundreds of episodes of Masters of the Universe. and not to mention comic books and other forms of storytelling, movies that have happened or will happen. It's 5 episodes out of the huge history of Masters of the Universe. In fact, I would venture to say that if this was a regular 20-something episode season of Masters of the Universe on regular TV, and maybe this was 5 episodes in the middle of one season, I think we take it better. I think people are afraid that this is it, that what they saw on screen, that they seeing Adam get stabbed and thinking Adam is dead, and so Teela's got to be the new He-Man or the new champion, whatever you want to call her. I think that's got people thinking one way, and I don't think that's the case. If that was the case, I would have to think about it. I'm not sure how I would feel if this was the end of the Masters of the Universe story, but I don't believe it is. And as a side note, I don't know if you remember, because people are nervous that Adam / He-Man is dead. But if you remember this, yes, stabbing does not equal death. Blood doesn't equal death. Between having a sorceress, between having Teela, who will one day be the sorceress, and having magic everywhere, and also just standard storytelling, I don't think that Adam / He-Man is dead. We may have to go through another journey to get him back to life, to get him resuscitated. Who knows what we have to go through. But I think by the end of this story, this entire story, we will have Eternia back where it was. We will have He-Man set back in place as its champion, and all will be right. That's what I think is going to happen. If something else happens, we'll have to deal with it down the road. But generally, I am more positive about this show, or at least about the 5 episodes we got so far, than I think the general public is. And that's okay. We all have our opinions. Our opinions all matter. I don't want to step on anybody's opinions. I don't want anybody to feel like I am minimizing what they think, what they feel. I want to be really respectful of people's feelings and of people's thoughts. But I think that the show may be a little more positive, may have more going for it than we see right now. And maybe by the time we get part 2 or more, we'll see it in a different light. So those were my short thoughts on Netflix's Masters of the Universe Revelations. If you stuck around this long, I appreciate you sticking around. If you enjoyed yourself, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed, and hit the notification bell. Also, feel free to leave comments. Please be respectful of each other in the comments. I know this is a testy show and a testy subject, so try to be respectful of each other in the comment section, and but have fun. Express yourself. Say what you feel. Like I said, I understand that people feel differently about things, have different opinions, and I respect everybody's right to have theirs, but try to play nice. And that is all I want to say. I appreciate you guys stopping by, and I'm going to end it like I always do. Love yourself, love others, and I will be back in a flash.